Hello, everyone. Jon Hawkins is only 22 years old, but he's already made a name for himself on media. He is a top writer in multiple topics and has been associated with publications like Mind Cafe and the Apparent blog. And in today's chat, I have Jon with me, and we are going to discuss what it takes to, make it big on Medium and how you can grow your own publication, what it takes to have your first viral story. So I'm super excited to have Jon with us today. And if you have any questions for him, you can just leave them in the chat box right here next to the video. So let's welcome Jon.
Hi,
Hi, Jon.
thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm really excited to be here and have a chat.
I'm so happy that you agreed to this, and I'm really looking forward to our talk.
Same, likewise.
So I just wanted to know how did you discover Medium as a platform, and what was your initial impression of the platform?
Good question. Back in 2018, I just started studying philosophy at university, and I'd had like lots of experience in kind of academic writing, so like writing at school and university essays and stuff like that. And I kind of considered myself like naturally good at writing, and I just wanted a place to kind of share my thoughts on the world and everything I've like the interests I found in philosophy. So I created a WordPress site originally, and I was just writing for friends and family more than anything for fun. Wasn't really getting many views. Maybe like my mum would read it. Maybe like 100 views a month if I was lucky. And then friend of mine recommended that I look up Medium. So I looked it up, and it kind of ticked all the boxes for a good place to home my articles, because first off it's free, so I didn't have to pay for a domain. That was a win. But also they bring the audience to you rather than you having to go out and look for them. It's also a space to kind of meet and network with people and grow a community rather than just you facing the challenges of writing on your own. And of course, there's always the incentive of money as well. And I think there's not really any other platforms like Medium where you can go out and learn how to do something like writing and get paid to do it from the get-go. I think the equivalent, so like I compare Medium for writing to how YouTube is for like video creators. And I think with YouTube, you can't pick it up from the get-go and learn the basics and get paid, because you have some certain requirements. And I think that's what makes Medium so powerful, is that anybody, regardless of ability, can, get tens of thousands of views and get paid, whether it be like 50 cents to $100 for doing something they probably know very little about and are learning about. So
Yeah, that's very true. And I think what you said also covers this question, because many people have this question: why should I write on Medium versus why should I write on my own blog? So the things that you mentioned, that in a blog you have to work hard for your audience, but Medium brings the audience to you, and also the payment thing. So yeah, that's a very great answer. So I'd like to know, like, that was your initial impression of the platform. So over time, it's been 2 years, I guess, 2.5 years since you joined. So how has your impression of Medium changed since then?
I say I joined in like 2018, like late 2018, so like September, October time, and I kind of wrote on and off the platform. So because obviously I was studying at the same time, it would be like 6 month intervals between the publishing pieces, and none of them were necessarily very good at the time. And I think the only real difference I can see between 2018 to 2020 or 2021 is kind of how many writers there are on the platform now. So it's a lot more topics that, so I used to write self-improvement a lot, just kind of generic self-improvement, and it'd do quite well. Whereas that topic's very saturated now. There's hundreds of writers on the platform all writing the same thing. And a generic self-help article won't stand out anymore. You have to go and do the research instead. So I think there's definitely been a shift in mindset for me for Medium, in that I don't necessarily see it as a place to make money anymore, because there's just so many writers on the platform. From the very beginning, I can't see, unless you get incredibly lucky, making your thousands of pounds without putting the hours in. Instead, I kind of see it as a place to network, meet people, and have your voice heard. And then if you earn money and people do read you, then that's kind of an added bonus rather than the main goal.
That's so good. I mean, that's such a great perspective to have, that not just make money, but network with people and build an audience. That's really great. So, since you've been on the platform for a while, according to you, what does the anatomy of a successful medium story look like?
Um, so I think like good stories come in loads of different shapes and sizes. So I don't really have kind of like a core criteria for what makes something successful and what makes something not, because over the years I've seen things not succeed that I thought should have succeeded, and things succeed that I thought maybe I can't see why this has succeeded, if that makes sense. But I think in general there's kind of like three things that I would say make up a like every successful story has them. And I think the first thing is that it's on a topic that readers are interested in. So maybe it helps them do something. For example, self-help. Maybe it's a story they empathise with and it's got personal experience, or maybe it's just on a topic that gets them thinking, and gets them talking around the dinner table. I think the second one, a pretty obvious one, is that it should be unique and it should offer some unique insight. It's very rare that a story will go viral if it's just a direct replica of or a rehash of an old story that you've seen somewhere. And I think the last and the most important thing is that it should do most of the legwork for the reader. So what I mean by that is it's on the author to go out and to read the 30, 40 pages of research, understand and internalize it, and then present it in a way that the reader can, capture it within 30 seconds rather than having to read long sentences and loads of wishy-washy text. So, yeah, I think those are the three core things that I try and encapsulate in every story. But other than that, I think, there's different avenues to what makes a great story. So it's quite difficult to answer the question.
Yeah, that's totally all right. So this, I think this is a question many people would have. Even I also have this question, like, because uh, self-improvement is a topic that's quite saturated on Medium, like you said. So, and most of the topics are sort of similar, right? Like whatever you say, it all comes down to this, right? Know your own potential and keep working towards your goal and take breaks if necessary. So all those things are just there. They are quite pretty common. So how do you make your story stand out if you're writing about topics that have already been written before? So that's just
Um,
a in general question, like your
yeah,
tips for making a story stand out.
I always try and seek so I'll take like a basic concept. So like, as you say, like, I don't know, reaching your full potential, and I'll go for like a hybrid story. So it's kind of like, I don't know, a psychological research with like that's applied to that concept, or philosophy that's applied to that concept, or a book that's applied to that concept. Or if there's no um, you know, specific research that you can find that necessarily think applies, then it's just like everybody has their own unique stories to tell and their own unique perspectives. So it's just as valid and beneficial to just talk about your own personal growth in that regard as well. I think remaining unique doesn't have to be going out and reading 30, 40, 50 pages of psychology and then applying it. It could just be, um, you know, I've struggled with my personal growth in the past, and these are the challenges that I faced, and this is how I overcame it. What I mean by being unique, all it really means is just avoiding the generic assertions that you see, like do this, wake up early, take cold showers, stuff like that, without any like experience or evidence. So
Yeah, that's very valuable advice. Even I'm going to apply that, because only recently I'm learning to do this thing. That yeah, this is generic advice, but maybe a twist or how I applied and the challenges I faced and how you can do that. So yeah, that's great advice. So, when it comes to an article being read, many people have this opinion that the most important factor is the title or the headline. So, according to you, how to make a title stand out, or what are some tips for writing a good title?
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting, wasn't it? Because like I think going back 6 months, the title probably would have been the most important thing because it was like that was all you could see. Whereas with like the new medium layout, I think the title is very important, obviously, but I think there's more of an onus on the first few paragraphs of your text as well. So I think, yeah, I think you should definitely put as much effort into your title, sorry, into the first few paragraphs as you do the title. But to answer your question as to like what makes a good title, I think it definitely kind of relates back to the answer to my question of like what makes a good article. Where that article is unique and it has some sort of offering that readers care about, and then the title and the subtitle should communicate what the purpose of the article is in an accessible way. And I think if the article is something that a reader will actually genuinely care about, then presenting the title as descriptive about the article will be like it will be sufficient to draw in the readers because they do actually care about the topic. Whereas I think if there's too much discrepancy between what the title is and what the article's about, for example, I see quite a lot of titles that they don't necessarily describe the article because they describe something that will draw in readers and then the article will be a bit different. And I don't think that's necessarily the best way to draw in readers because as soon as they've started reading it and realised what the article's about, they're probably going to leave. So your read time will be pretty bad. So yeah, I think definitely, presenting the value of your article and making sure the article itself has that value. In terms of my own process, what I usually do is I usually have like a working title based on, so just based on things I've experienced in my day-to-day life. So I'm doing something or I'm out or I'm taking a shower or something like that, and an idea will pop into my head. So to give a really simple example, when I was at university, I spent about, I think it was like 4 or 5 hours reading this continental philosophy piece. And I was like, damn, how do you read philosophy? And I remember going into my drafts and just writing how to read philosophy. And then I think it was like 3, 4, 5 weeks later, I came back to that draft and that working title. And I just wrote an article based on the working title. And then after the article was written, I went back and kind of asked myself, does this title communicate what's presented in the article? Is there a way to make it more eye-catching and snappier, and kind of present it in fewer words? And kind of lastly, I guess the most important question is, would I open it? Do I care about it? Because if I don't care about it, what chance does anybody else have? So
Yeah, that's great advice. And you just said, right, you kept that thing in your drafts for a long time. And recently, I think you tweeted that you have 100 plus drafts.
yeah,
So, like I don't really keep drafts. If I have an idea, I just work on it. I finish it. I submit it. I don't have drafts. That's my process. So I'm just curious, what's your writing process like? How do you approach an idea? How do you approach an article?
yeah. So as I say, usually the original idea usually comes about from, I'll be out and about. I'll be in a place where I can't just pick up and start writing, and I'll have this sudden like. It's very rare that I'll sit on my desk and have an idea and start writing. It's usually the ideas come about when I'm living just day to day. So I'll be at the park with my friends, I'll be out having a coffee or something like that, and an idea will pop into my head, and I'll just take a minute just to open up my drafts and just to just to scribble out the title. So just like it's usually just like a statement. So I wrote a piece which was like psychologically the world doesn't revolve around you, and at the time I was just like the world doesn't revolve around you. I just went into my drafts. Just wrote it out, like really simple idea. And at the same time, what I'll do is I'll try and break down 3 subheaders. So I'll, just 3 general breakdowns of that original thought. So like the world doesn't revolve around you. And then I'll just put something like really simple, like I think at the time I was thinking about, I think it's called the spotlight effect, which is the belief that everybody's watching you. So at school, people always used to worry when you walked up the stage to collect like an award in assembly, but if you were going to trip and fall and everyone was going to see you. And I think my idea of like the world doesn't revolve around you was to say not everybody cares about what you're doing. Like, in fact, nobody cares really. In your day-to-day life, when you're in a coffee shop, you feel self-conscious, for example. So I just scribbled all this down, like just general ideas. I'm pretty sure I wrote basically that idea like just on my phone, typing it, and it was more just so I don't forget it. Doesn't necessarily mean I have to return to it and write anything, but if when I'm sat at my desk, I've got like a backlog of 100, I can just scroll up and down and be like, okay, which one jumps out at me today? Which one do I want to write about?
No, that makes sense because even I do the same. Like when I get an idea, I write it down and I sort of outline it in whatever way I think I can. And then I just have this list of ideas ready. So when I sit to write, that's what I do. Like exactly what you said. Which one of them speaks to me? I only decide to work on that. The only difference is I don't write in my medium drafts. I write on my journal or in my phone or maybe a message to myself on WhatsApp. So that's how I do it. So, a lot of new writers on the platform, they have this promise that Medium is going to make them rich or pay them loads of money for their writing. Right? And when they don't make money with the first story, they get discouraged. So I just wanted people to know how actually difficult it is to make money from your writing. So, like in your experience, how long did it take for you to make $100, say, in a month? Like
Yeah.
how many months did you have to write before you made your first $100?
So when I joined, you could get distributed without having a member-only article. So like my first couple of articles weren't member-only; they were just free. So like my first month, I wasn't even part of the partner program, and then I think 3 months down the line, I just thought, screw it, I'll sign up, and I just put all my articles behind a paywall, made 22 cents, thought, get in, 22 cents. Um, and then, yeah, I was kind of on and off the platform for the first year. So I didn't, I think I had exams and stuff like that. And I think I wrote like once every 3 months. Maybe I wrote in January. So I started in September, wrote two or three. Maybe wrote one in December. Maybe wrote one in January. I think it took me about 9 or 10 months before I earned $100. And even
10
then,
months.
it was even then that was like a one-off, and I was surprised. But it's mainly because I I wasn't really writing on the platform to make money. I wasn't writing every day. I wasn't writing every week. I was just like, whenever I felt like it, I just write. But to be honest, if you took that attitude now, you would get nowhere near $100 because back then it was a lot easier to earn money because it was a clap. So now you get paid per read time. Back then you got paid per claps. So, and I used to just get my mates had membership at the time, and I was just like, mate, can you clap this? And I'd get his $5 and stuff like that. And yeah, it was. Now it'd probably take me longer if you took that kind of method. So, yeah, I'd say expect if you just doing it like I did, which is just writing for the hell, like just for fun every couple of months, then expect to earn maybe $20 if you're lucky. So yeah,
If you're lucky, that's the keyword. I think. So,
yeah,
after that first $100, what were some steps that you took to sustain that income from Medium?
yeah. So as I say, I think that was like September 29th. So it's probably it was probably like summer 2019. It would have been about 9-10 months, and I was going back to uni, so I had no intention of really like maintaining that $100. Because obviously it would take a lot of work to keep writing and publishing, and I didn't have the time. I was, doing academic stuff at university. So I think, if I'm honest, I didn't really have like some long-term goal to consistently earn $100. It was just kind of like just whenever it feels natural, I'll just write on topics that interest me, and if other people enjoy it and I make money, then that's really cool. I think now I've finished university, my plan is just to kind of write as consistently as I can. So whenever it feels natural to write, and don't necessarily put it off. Kind of prioritize writing over other stuff. So I guess if anybody's kind of at that stage now where they've just started and they've maybe they're close to or they've earned $100 and they want to keep it up, I'd say it's just as simple as just keep writing and just keep prioritizing writing on Medium as like one of your main like purposes.
Totally. That's what I tell people who ask me this question, that there's only one way. You have to be consistent. And we have a very timely question from one of our members of the audience. So this question is split in two parts. The first part is, do you use Scrivener for writing? And the second part is, kindly suggest a way to consistently write every day.
Okay, cool. So what was the software called again? Sorry,
Scrivener.
I'll go completely honest. I haven't heard of it, so I'm not sure what it
Okay.
is. So I haven't used it.
Okay.
Sadly, not.
I use Scrivener for writing longer pieces of fiction. Actually, see, when you're writing on Microsoft Word or Google Docs, if your piece becomes very long, it's very tiring to keep scrolling up, right?
Okay.
But Scrivener has the option where you can split into chapters. So it's just one chapter, two chapters. So whatever you're writing, it's easier to scroll. So it's good for writing longer pieces of fiction, maybe a novel or a book,
Okay.
not for an article. Not article, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. No, thank you very much for the tip. Um, and
And
the
the
second
other
part of the
question is,
question,
yeah, suggest a way to consistently write every day.
I would say it's all about routine. Well, actually, I'm not very good at practicing what I preach, so I could sit here and tell you to have a routine and to wake up every morning and to get up at 9 a.m. and write because every the same time every day. But I don't do that, so I don't feel comfortable telling you to do that. I think if you don't feel like writing every day, then you shouldn't. It's that simple, really. Um, it should like writing, especially on Medium, shouldn't necessarily be overly forced. You should have that enough motivation and drive to want to do it. Um, and it's sometimes if you're struggling to write one particular day, I think it's probably better to have a day off and come back to it a day or two later. And you're gonna. It's better to write more when you want to write rather than to consistently write on days you don't want to and write less, if that makes sense. For me, anyway. So I probably write for Medium like twice a week, and I just in one sitting I'll just write an article from start to finish, and then just submit it. Go back to it, edit it another day. Other people have different, routines. Some people like getting up at, as I say, like getting up at 9 in the morning, writing 500 words every day. But I think there's definitely different ways of doing it. But yeah, in short, my response to the person who asked the question would be, you don't have to write every day if you don't want to.
Thanks for that, because I also really needed to hear that because I have been this year I haven't written anything. I'm just struggling to build that habit, but I'm just taking it cool because today I had this thought that you don't really have to write every day to be a writer. You can just, even if you're not writing, you can observe and absorb whatever is happening to you, and you can make that a part of you so that sometime in the future they can appear in your writing, like maybe an event, how it made you feel, or maybe the way a person talked to you, what revelations did you have, and how you can make an article or a story out of that. So it's like a constant process. You're observing, you're internalizing, and you're becoming a better writer somehow.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Medium's a great platform in some respects, but in others, it is so fast paced that it encourages you to publish like almost every day. Some
Yeah.
writers preach it, say like if you want to succeed, keep publishing every day and you'll get there, kind of thing. And that's great, but in terms of like general writing, to actually produce something of quality, fair, you may be able to do it in a day, but that's not that sort of like mentality and way of doing things doesn't work for everybody. I think there's definitely a lot of writers out there. Think about how long it takes to write a book. Even just the general idea probably takes like months of just like sitting around observing and like just contemplating and scribbling down ideas, and then maybe you change it. So yeah, I think I try and in my own personal writing, I try and incorporate that in some regards, which is have 2 or 3 days to think about concepts, maybe take it in a different way, maybe don't, rather than just every day. I can't sit down every day and just like off the top of my head think of an idea and write it. and then submit it, and then the next day think of another idea and write it and submit it. But I have tried that, and I'm sure you'll probably be able to spot in my, if you're going to have a look at my profile, there's periods where I do publish every day for a week, and the quality just drops drastically in the things I've said, just because like I'm just scrambling around for ideas. Like I don't have any. Like it will take me a few days to think something up. So yeah.
That's I think that's a relief to hear from many people, because it's actually very difficult to struggle. That struggle is natural, to find something new to write about every day. So we have another question from one of the members of the audience, and this question is like, any further planning to blog? So I'm not really sure what that means. Maybe it means returning to your own blog, or maybe expanding outside of Medium. So like, what would you say? Do you have any further plans to blog?
Um, yeah, so I think that's something I've thought about maybe returning to, but that would probably be in the long term future. So at the moment, I'm kind of building up a mailing list, and yeah, just an audience of just people who like enjoy reading my things. And then in the future, maybe I will take a step away from Medium and do something different. Maybe I'll return to a blog. And if I do, then what I'll probably do is continue keeping up that mailing list and providing that value to that audience, and hopefully they'll migrate with me. But that's like, that'll be like years in the future. That's not any plans I have now. And the original WordPress site is gone, out of existence. You won't find it anywhere, which is good.
Okay. So, a different question now. So, when did the idea of starting your own publication come to you? When and how
Okay.
and why?
Yeah, so it was that. Yeah, it was. So I think the first thing I'd like to say about publications is probably, if you're thinking about starting a publication, if you write on Medium, don't just do it for the sake of it. 'Cause I see a lot of people just be like, oh, I want to write and create a publication. I like the concept of owning a publication, but there's nothing unique about it. So only really create a publication if you have some sort of purpose, or unique aim, or something that you do differently to everybody else. There's a lot of kind of small publications that have just copied others, and they'll never grow to the size of the Ascent or the Star, because the reason they grew so big, or even like Mind Cafe or Better Humans, the reason they grew so big is because they offered something different, like something unique. So yeah, I created the Appear On blog. It was that WordPress site originally was. It was just www.theappearonblog.com. And I created it because when I was at university, a lot of academic philosophers were overcomplicating things. So in like the books I was reading, it was taking me 8 hours to understand like 10 pages. So I was reading like continental philosophy, like Heidegger and Kant, and it was so unnecessarily wordy and just full of jargon. And it was a problem I also had with like people I met in the department as well, other students, was they would come and talk to me, and they'd be like, oh, what do you think of this idea? But then they describe it in a way that I couldn't understand. Like I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I'd go away and I'd read up about it, and what they were talking about was a really simple concept. They'd just chosen to kind of present it in a really alienating way. Just like, don't know why. It's a common like trait that philosophers have in the wider philosophy community as well. So like, I'm talking like academic philosophy, not like so like analytic and continental philosophy. And a lot of my non-philosophy friends used to kind of ask me what philosophy is, like what do you study? A lot of people used to misunderstand it and assume it was like psychology and stuff like that. And I kind of realized that the subject wasn't widely followed, not because there wasn't any value in it, but more because it was just so inaccessible to the everyday reader. So I wanted to create a platform that presents the value of philosophy, the sorts of questions like, what does it all mean? What happens when we die? What makes something morally right and wrong? I think I wanted to help people like talk about those questions, get answers to those questions as well, in a way that everybody can understand. And the reason I created it on, well, as I say, it was a WordPress site. The reason I moved across the Medium was there wasn't really a leading publication that did that in a way that I wanted it to. And I just wanted a place to house my articles, and I thought it'd be beneficial to shape and help the writing community write philosophy in that way as well, because I thought it'd be beneficial just for the reader base. So yeah, that was the inspiration behind it. But it's definitely the process to have is, one, I have an idea. Two, I want to make a publication from that idea, not the other way around, which is, one, I want to make a publication. Two, you know what I mean? Like, what should I do? What should I create a publication of? And I think that's what, because I know you created the books are our superpower, and but from just talking to you earlier, it seems that you had a very similar process to me, which was you wanted to write about books. There was a niche for books, and it was something that you thought people should read about, but there was no home for it. So
That's great, because even right now we had a question like, how do you know a category where you can start your publication? I think this answers this question perfectly. Like, you don't have to think of a category. That category, the idea would come to you, right? If you want to write about something and that publication does not already exist on Medium, so you make one. You don't go about thinking that, yeah, I need a publication. What should the topic be,
yeah,
right? Yeah, and
absolutely.
that we have another question. So it says that since both of you are editors slash owners of publication, if one dismisses the rejection note, would you still be able to tell if the story was rejected before by another publication? The answer is no, in my experience.
Yeah,
You have no way of knowing if it was applied somewhere else or not.
yeah, it's only if the note's left. So
Yeah.
that's, and even then I dismiss them. So like if I get an article and it's been rejected by another publication, I'll dismiss that note, and I'll read it and take it on its own, like the article, because just because another publication thought it wasn't right for them doesn't make it not right for us. So I wouldn't worry
Yeah.
too much about notes like that. I think editors are quite good at spotting quality regardless of external factors like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it was rejected and you already worked on their feedback, there is no sense in keeping that note. It's better to dismiss it and submit it to some other place. Okay. So, I think many people also want to know this answer that Mind Cafe is one of the biggest publication on Medium, right? And it's most respected because it's so hard to get in. So, how did your association with Mind Cafe begin?
Um, yeah, so I feel like a lot of people assume it's because like I'm some sort of amazing writer or amazing editor, but the real answer is I was just childhood friends with Adrian, the founder. So yeah, I lived down the road from him. I used to go to school with him as a kid, and my cafe kind of started at the same time that I launched my WordPress site, and I was kind of writing on there quite on my WordPress site quite consistently. And Adrian or AJ reached out and said, do you want to write for my new publication? And we had like 5 or 6 writers at the time, and I was like, yeah, sure. So I started writing for Mind Cafe, and then over time, my writing's improved, and it's got to the point now where because I've been there from the beginning, I kind of knew the sort of style that Adrian was after and the guidelines, and I'd kind of internalized them. And it got to the point where he just asked me if I wanted to, be submissions manager. It's that simple, really. I think we were speaking about this before, in that, a lot of editors, they want quality and they want like people with a keen eye, but at the same time, they want people they can talk to and have relationships with. And, I think it's definitely finding that balance. And I think that's where I've fitted in really quite well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story, because I'm sure many people might not have known you and Adrian were friends before. So, like, since you became an editor for Mind Cafe and you also started your own publication, so what are some of the most interesting things that happened to you because of owning or being the editor of a publication?
Um, to be fair, that's a good question, because I don't think like super interesting things happen. I think cool things like being invited on to chats like this are definitely exciting and fun, and I don't think I'd get this opportunity without doing things like that. But I think the biggest and the best thing for me is just being able to speak to and interact with so many amazing people, and be able to read thousands of unique stories, all from around the globe, and having emails in, of people saying that they love my work or that they love my publication. Especially, I had quite a lot over Christmas, from the philosophy community with the Appear On blog, of people being like, "Thank you so much for all the stuff you do," and it's just stuff like that that makes it, the fact that people have incorporated reading the things that I write and the things that I edit into their day-to-day lives always amazes me. Um, and another thing that's been really cool is just being able to support other writers on their journey as well. So I've had quite a lot of people thank me and say, my writing's improved so much since, you spent time with me and helped and edited my stuff. So yeah, it's definitely just meeting other people. And I think that's what Medium is, because without the users, it'd just be a shell. And I think that people make the experience what it is, don't they, really? So
Absolutely. Even I can say the same, because when you leave notes on my article, especially notes related to research, how to add research in your story, they have helped me a lot, because I didn't know earlier on like how exactly you need to cite research. But you have told that, whenever you cite a study, you just don't say research says blah blah blah. You say that research by some person or research from this particular university, because that adds credibility and people would believe it, right? If you just say randomly research says, it just sounds very vague. So
yeah,
that's something I learned from you.
yeah,
So
yeah. And to be completely honest, stuff like that is just like stuff that is kind of, I've just not made up on the spot, but like it's just my own opinion and my own insight. And the fact that people value that always means a lot to me as well. As you said at the start, I'm only 22, so I consider myself kind of a newbie and a bit of, still a bit of a child. And yeah, it's just been having people kind of respect and value your input always means a lot. So
that's such a great attitude to have.
yeah.
So we have a question from the audience, and this says that please suggest some books one should read to become a better writer.
That's a good question. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't really read much on reading, no, and writing. Sorry, I know. I'm just going on Google now. One sec. There was a really good book by Hemingway. Um, Let me see if I can get it up. So yeah, the only real my general writing style has come from. It's mainly been organic, and It's also come from like academic stuff. So just general reading your favorite writers. So you know, the reason I feel quite confident in communicating philosophy is because I've read for hundreds and hundreds of hours my favorite philosophers. So like Peter Singer, John Rawls, Harry Frankfurt, all who are philosophers that I kind of look up to. And I've kind of, after reading their style for so long, I've kind of adopted quite a lot of their like unique ways of doing things and presenting things. So my first tip would be to read less about how to write, because it's very easy to read something that says write in this way or write in that way. It's very easy to see that, but it's harder to understand how that works in practice in different scenarios. It's much better to find a writer that you look up to and keep reading their style and keep reading loads of different writer styles, and then over time yours will naturally kind of develop to fit, if that makes sense. Saying that, the only book I've ever written on writing better was called Ernest Hemingway on Writing. I think it's quite a cheap book. I think I paid like tenner for it. I don't know how that translates in other countries, but that's just a compilation of Ernest Hemingway's letters to different editors during his lifetime. So it just friends and editors and people, aspiring writers. He just wrote notes on how they could better improve, and they've just all been compiled into that book. So yeah, if my advice would be, if you want to read something specifically about writing, check that out. But otherwise, just continue reading your favorite authors, and yeah.
like actively reading and trying to dissect their writing and apply that in your own, right? That's very sound advice. So the name of the book you suggested is called On Writing by Hemingway.
It's called Ernest Hemingway on Writing.
Oh,
It's like a compilation of his books, so it's been put together by Larry Phillips,
okay, Larry.
but it's kind of like he's the editor because all the works are from Hemingway.
Recently, one I submitted an article to a publication, and the editor told me that my writing didn't sound like it was written by a native speaker. And they suggested me a book. It's called On Writing Well by William Zissner. And I have been reading that book of late, and I found it very useful because a lot of the mistakes that the author pointed out, I felt that, yeah, I also make them. Like, having like a lot of clutter in your writing, or maybe like using words that you think sound cool but actually it doesn't. So that book also helped me a lot. So if you're looking for a suggestion, maybe you could also uh, check out this book On Writing Well. So yeah, okay, so like one of the members of the audience also asked this question that what about publication about news, and so that the ranking appears on Google News. Would that be a good idea?
Yes, so it's like a publication just on general news.
Mhm.
I think
I suppose that's what they mean.
uh, I think that could definitely work well. I don't think there isn't really like a news segment of Medium, is there? So that would
Mhm.
definitely be like a unique avenue to take.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I do like that idea, but I think the only problem is you're going to have quite a lot of competition from like actual news reporters. So the difficulty would be in like making sure everything's up to date and accurate. There'd be no it'd be no good creating a publication about news and then reporting on it a day late or 2 days late because it's old news then, isn't it? So yeah, it'd be very fast paced and you'd have to keep on top of it. And but I think it's definitely a good idea, and it's definitely something that I think medium readers would find value in because it's already included in the $5 membership. So if they can get news on top of everything else, then I'm sure they'd be pleased.
Yeah, but you have to work really hard and be really active and not bring your own personal bias into the whatever you're writing.
Yeah, of course.
So, so apart, like if someone is starting a new publication, so what are some tips to grow that publication? How do you attract more writers and how do you attract more readers? Because you
Yeah,
have you have a lot of experience with the appearance blog, so
yeah.
based
So
on that.
I think like 6 months ago, I think because we've gone from like 0 to 6K followers, or like, I think we're on 6.5 or 6.6 now in like 6 months. So I think back when I first started, I didn't really have much to like. When you have like no followers and a lot of writers are in the numbers game where they just want to publish where their stuff will get seen, you don't really have much to offer, like in terms of like stats. So you have to think outside the box a bit and think, what can I bring to the table that nobody else can? And for me, that was always about like the purpose and the message of the publication. So, my particular one was about philosophy and like thinking critically. And I think if I was just a copy into the self improvement publication or a culture publication, just copy them, then I don't think I'd really get anywhere because I wouldn't have that added bonus of like a purpose. And I think the next thing really was just to be selective in the writers that I was choosing. So I was, of course, like every publication just to start with, I was actively going out and looking for writers in the philosophy tag, in the self tag, in the psychology tag. But I was really selective with which ones I picked. It was ones that matched the styles that I'd written and matched the quality that I wanted. And I generally aimed at emerging writers, so ones with like up to 1,000 followers at the time. And to win them over, it's just a case of selling yourself and just presenting the purpose you have, what you want to do, what you want to achieve with the publication. So for me, it was something like, hey, I think you'd really enjoy my publication. I'm on a quest to promote the value of academic philosophy to the everyday reader and to inspire them to think critically. And for some writers, that was enough to bring them on board because they shared a similar mission and they thought that academic philosophy wasn't widely followed. So yeah, I think that's the first step is just finding that message and finding that purpose more than anything. And I think the biggest thing more than anything is just maintaining quality, because if you're one of those kind of accept all submissions publications, then you're kind of devaluing being accepted into the publication early on. And I think, yeah, maybe it might be good for growth, but yeah, it kind of detracts from the sort of writers that might fit your style because you're kind of watering it down. So yeah. I'm not sure if I'm live still, but if I am, it looks like we're having technical difficulties, so we might have to sit here for a minute and see what's going on. Oh, okay. There's been a power cut, so it looks like I'll have to entertain you all for two. Oh, we're back. Very good. I was just saying I'll have to entertain everybody for a minute or two. We're all good. Sadly, I can't see the replies and comments. What's that? See if I can get it up. Otherwise, I'd be able to answer some more questions. Let's see if I can get it up.
Hi, can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can see you now. Yes, we're good.
So like there was a power outage in my area, and because of that, the net just went off. I hope you had fun entertaining the audience.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Were you in the middle of something?
Oh yeah, so I basically just rounded off by just saying I'd avoid becoming an accept all submissions publication, because the biggest thing with growth early on is quality and maintaining that message that you have, and you don't really want to water down and devalue that message in any way. So yeah, looks like it's just me again. I can actually see questions now. So if you have any questions, do feel free to ask. Yeah,
Hi, I'm back again. I hope this is the last time this is happening.
fingers crossed.
Yes.
So
Please continue.
yeah, I wasn't sure which part we got to, but I was basically just saying I'd avoid being like an accept all submissions publication, because um, the main thing is like attracting writers early on is just maintaining that message and that purpose and setting yourself out from everybody else. And if you just accept everything, then the quality won't necessarily be there. And that'll kind of distract. Take the perspective. Imagine I was a writer who'd been approached by a small publication with not many followers. They had 100 followers, and they came to me and they said, "Do you want to write for my publication?" And I took a look, and they just accepted everything. They didn't really have a clear direction. I'd probably think, well, why should I publish there rather than somewhere with 100,000 followers? Whereas if they had like a lot of quality, a clear purpose, I might be more inclined to think, oh, actually, there's some like that's a message and like a purpose and a goal that I really want to contribute to, so I am going to write for them.
Yeah. And I think what you said was not being an accept all is also very important, because if you publish like 100 stories in a day, the chances for each story being seen becomes less. But if you publish like 5, 10, maybe 15, then the chances for the stories become higher. So the writers
Yeah,
will also appreciate you as an editor.
yeah. So I think with the
Right?
Imperial blog, I publish like I aim to publish one a day. Sometimes like it's anywhere between 1 and 3, but most days it's just one. And I've seen growth, like quite a fast, rapid growth, just with that one day. Just because you are right, I'm putting more emphasis on each one that I publish, and each one's being seen by more people. Um, so yeah, and I think it gives me a bit more time to properly edit and proof and review everything and make sure that everything I put out is going to perform.
Yeah, even that's the same we do with Books Are Our Superpower, because we publish like maybe 3 to 5 stories a day and 5 days a week. And we are very strict with the editorial guidelines. If something doesn't match with our standards, we spend a lot of time editing it. And most writers who write for us, they have like gotten into this habit of checking our style guide. I think that's very important of having maintaining a quality. Then people will trust you even more,
Absolutely, yeah.
right?
'Cause I
Yeah.
think I think a
So
lot of people
yeah.
forget. I think a lot of people forget that Medium, although it's 50% a writing platform, it's 50% a reading platform as well, and it is growth's important, but it is very much taking pride in the things you publish and making sure that readers actually will enjoy it. So when I publish things, I always ask myself, okay, imagine I applied for a job, or I told my friend about my publication and they visited it and they only read this one story. Would they have a feel for the quality that I'm and all the effort I'm putting into it? And if the answer is no, then I'm not taking enough pride in what I'm doing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Wow, that's a great tip. I'm going to remember that each time I see a new story coming into my publication.
Yeah.
That each story should reflect on your quality. That's a great tip. So, yeah, to wrap up, I would just ask you a sort of difficult question for you to answer. So, if you had to start again on Medium with 0 followers, but with all the knowledge that you currently have, so what are some steps that you would take, or how would you spend your first month on Medium?
Yeah. Um, so I think when you're first starting, like, suppose I hadn't got like, I'm have all the knowledge I have, but I'm not in the flow of writing. I think when you're not in the flow, things take a lot longer than usual. To just get into like the routine of writing certain quality, of researching. And I think what I personally would do is, instead of aiming at kind of money or followers, I'd probably just write what felt natural and I enjoyed, and I'd just publish like 2 or 3 pieces that month. Ones that I was really proud of, and I'd start as a means to go ahead, rather than just so a lot of the part of the learning is learning how to write, learning what the readers are interested in. But I think and like, obviously that's important when you publish, but a lot of the lessons can be achieved before you hit the publish button as well. So just general editing, people aren't always in the flow of editing, and making sure all their stuff's like grammatically correct. So as I say, I'd probably spend the first month just perfecting 2 or 3 pieces I was proud of, rather than writing like as many as I could and just publishing them and seeing what was happening. Because I think that's what a lot of new writers do, is they get into the flow of writing like 15, 20 stories a month or whatever, but they haven't taken the time to set that bar of quality. And they never reach it because they've never taken a step back and thought, is this good enough for me? So
That's very important advice. No? Not just bomb without content, but take care of the quality. That's really great advice. So, John, it's been great fun chatting with you, and you gave some really valuable answers. I'm sure the audience also found it really useful. So, thank you so much for joining us today. I had great fun talking to you,
yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I really appreciate.
even though the net was really bad.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We coped, which is good, and I just really appreciate the invite, and it was great chatting with you. And thank you to everybody who asked questions as well. I hope you found it useful.
So, thanks so much, John. I'll see you again soon. Bye. So that was Jon Hawkins for you, and he gave some really really valuable answers. I hope you had as much fun hearing his answers as I did, and I'll leave the links to follow Jon, his publications, and his email list in the description. Make sure you go and check them out. And if you have any questions that you would like us to answer, Jon or me, please let me know in the comments because I'll be answering them soon. And also, if you have any ideas for whom I should interview next, just let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to do that for you. So, yeah, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon. Bye.